Greetings. So welcome to this episode of Everyday Enchantment. I've got a great story. Actually, I have lots of stories about my dating life after I got divorced. I was in my mid to late 30s and I had never really dated a whole lot when I was younger, a little bit when I was a teenager, but I had met my first husband when I was 16. So we were together for almost 20 years and I didn't have a lot of experience. So I have lots of stories to tell you. You'll have to let me know if you want to hear more. But this one in particular, I think resonates even now with me, which is like, I don't know, 12 or 13 years later. While I was going through my divorce, I spent a lot of time at the gym, which I've talked about in other episodes, because again, I was looking to fill space that was awkward and uncomfortable for me. All of a sudden I was alone more. I had all of this free time. What am I going to do? And so I got, I would say, slightly obsessed with my body and how much food I was eating. And so I got into this nightly routine at the gym where I would go and probably be there for 2 or 3 hours. And there was a particular gentleman there, and he was quite hot. And I had created this whole fantasy in my head about him and me and being out on dates and you name it. I got wild and crazy in my own head. He actually was somebody who, if I had paid more attention to like reading the room, so to speak, he was a groaner at the gym. Like he would lift weights and groan. That's just like not really my thing, total turn off. And yet I overlooked that because I just decided that we were going to have this hot dating life. And it went on for a really long time. I talked to my friends, and when I say a long time, I mean months. I was telling my friends all about him and I would be excited to see him. I never spoke to this person, not once. I never said hi. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I smiled, but I did not say more than hi. He was over one side of the gym, I was on the side of my gym, but it really became this fantasy for me about what I wanted, right? I wanted more excitement in my life. I wanted more some kind of enchantment and magic and what have you. And because my life felt the opposite of enchanting at the time, it felt lonely and scary and it felt messy. Going through divorce, if you've ever gone through one, is a very messy proposition. And even though I chose it and I wasn't regretting that choice, you're still uncoupling. I called it like detangling myself or the disentanglement, I used to say, of my former life. It is not an easy process. And so there are going to be times when you find yourself in the middle of some messy transformation. Nobody likes to talk about the messy middle. Everybody loves to talk about, oh, this happened or I made this choice. And then let me tell you the flip side of how wonderful I am or it was or what have you. However, every time I've ever walked through a change, there is some transition. Now, sometimes it's super, super messy, and sometimes it's just a little blip. I do believe that we can walk through with more ease and fun. And I also believe we've got to make space for the messy. So I don't want to make space for the messy back then. I just wanted the magic. So I'm creating enchantment and magic. And again, I'm not judging myself. I was absolutely in a space where that mental diversion was helping me kind of cope and get through. And that's what I was using because that's what I default, like, let me live in a fantasy land. I did realize at some point, here's where we all get to kind of come to this moment. I got to a space where I realized that I wanted my real life to have enchantment and magic. It didn't have to be perfect. But whatever this was that I was spending all this time and energy on, out in the future, it's not in the present moment. How many times have you thought, well, when my kids get older or when I find, this perfect soulmate or I move and I get this great job or, my partner retires and now we have all this time together. We're projecting our happiness and our joy, our enchantment, you name it, out into some time that doesn't exist. And if we're creating it, right, instead of being in the present moment, It's very easy to stay there and disconnect, which again, most of the time when I want to disconnect, it means I don't want to feel some kind of feeling, angry, sadness, grief, whatever it is, I'd rather not. And here's what I want to say about walking the path of everyday enchantment. When you are willing to feel the feelings, to be in all of the things that, again, none of us are like, yeah, bring on that anger and sadness and grief. No, we're not leaning in usually from that place. Although there are moments where I'll be like, this is good, I'm feeling. It means the energy is moving through. If you want more present day magic, like I did, it's coming back in and saying, "Where am I taking myself out?" Right? And creating something that doesn't exist and using all of my resources rather than asking a question like this. So in that moment, and I did not know anything about life coaching back then, although I was always an intuitive channel. I do remember asking myself, what about that spark, about, again, that hotness that I was craving. What about that can I create for myself right now? Ooh, did not necessarily like the answer that the me responded, which is like, go out and start talking to people that you're, maybe not necessarily going to date, but that you're interested in, that you might want to get to know, that you want to create or see if there's a spark with. Start doing the brave thing that will create the spark now. Yep. A lot harder, and I only say harder because, again, it feels vulnerable and tender to do things like that. It feels felt safer to be all up in my fantasy. And again, there's nothing wrong with having fantasies. I'm just when they become a coping mechanism for you not to be creating more right now, that to me is, again, just a little like, okay, I want to pay attention. So I did. I started going out and talking to people. And I remember, and I am not kidding you, the first time I went over, I saw somebody that I thought, oh, that person would be interesting to talk to. I went over, I got 3 steps like over to them, and I started crying. Not because anything, I didn't even get to talk to this person. It was just, I just had all this fear. So then I realized, okay, my work right now, my focus right now is just being really gentle and tender and loving and compassionate. This is not about trying to force myself to create something against my nervous system. This was just really about, okay, now we know. Now we know that that fear feels so insurmountable that that's part of what's been going on here. So anyway, I always want us to come back to, again, being in awareness and noticing. If you want to have the synchronicities in life, you love all of, like, when the universe just winks and nods, sends you a message, or like you get I always say, like, anytime I get like the perfect parking spot or the perfect sale on something I want, or somebody I've been thinking about calls me out of the blue, like all of that synchronicity, we need to make energetic space for it. So if we're all out, like for me, I'm out in the future fantasizing. There's not a lot of space for that real spark, that person or whatever experience, doesn't even have to be a person, to be welcome and invited in. So I want you to just take an inventory today in terms of how much energy you're spending outside of the present moment and where you can pull that back in. If you've got a fantasy going, what about that really turns you on that you can use in this moment? Do you want to feel the butterflies? Do you want to go on an adventure? Do you want to feel alive? Right? That to me is probably the heart of it. It's like just feeling alive. And I realized I had to feel the fear in order to really feel the aliveness of the other things I wanted to. So let me know what you think. Let me know if this practice, these questions, these pauses, these kind of awareness tools are helpful. And as you apply them to your life, I would love for you to pop over to Everyday Enchantment, my free Facebook group, and give me a comment, question, anything that's on your mind. All right. Until next time, have a beautiful day. And just know that the universe is here supporting and guiding you, and you are an incredible being. That's it for now, loves. Thank you for tuning into this episode. Get all the juicy details and links we've mentioned in the show notes. If learning more about how you can use your own enchantment to live a oh hell yes life, come get your own coaching session with me by going to staceyandon.com and signing up for my homepage. And as always, come chat with me about this topic and all things enchantment in my Facebook group, Everyday Enchantment. See you on the flip side.